Good afternoon. National Assembly for Wales is now in session, and the first item this afternoon are questions to the First Minister. And question 1, Alan Fair-Jones.
Awn lai for Prif Weinidog datganiad am strategaeth cysylltiadau rhyngwladol Llywodraeth Cymru.
Mae Llywodraeth Cymru yn neud
Welsh Government engages internationally in order to maximise the economic benefit to Wales and enhance our profile overseas.
Mae Llywodraeth a'r Cynulliad wedi gwneud cysylltiadau yn amlwg gyda Patagonia
created links with Patagonia because of the historic connections with Lesotho in southern Africa, and you've recently been to Uganda, but there is another area that has close links with Wales, namely Meghalaya in northern India. The hills of Cashau, Bryniau Cashau was the name that we were familiar with, and I would encourage you, because of the close relationships that have existed since 1840 in terms of education and medicine, I would ask you whether you would consider making links with this relatively poor area of northern India, and Dr. David Tariang, who is a medical officer in Shillong Hospital, will be visiting Wales tomorrow as it happens, and I would ask if you would be willing to consider meeting a delegation of the Friends of Meghalaya from Wales and Dr. David Tariang, yourself or one of your ministers.
Tomorrow will be exceptionally difficult, but very happy, of course, to build links with the area. I know of the links between Wales and parts of India, and very happy to ensure that somebody meets with them tomorrow, and we know that they're coming over to create those links.
William Graham.
Thanks, Riding Officer. The Secretary of State has urged Welsh businesses to take part in the International Festival for Business, which runs until the 22nd of July. What discussions the First Minister had with businesses in Wales to maintain a strong Welsh presence there?
Together with the EST Minister, we have regular and daily discussions with Welsh businesses in order to ensure that they make the most of all opportunities that come their way.
Question 2, David Ellis-Thomas.
Diolch yn fawr, Fod Nesig Lewis. Yna Prif Weinidog yn bwriadu gweithredu gyfrifoldebau dros gysylltiadau a gweddill y Den Unedig yn y flwyddyn
in the year 2014.
Byddai'n parhau wrth gwrs i gymryd ran mwyn sicrhau ran yn y cydbwyllgor Weinidogion ac yn cyfrannu at y drafodaeth am drefniadau cyfansoddiadol
and contribute to the debate on future constitutional arrangements for the United Kingdom following the Scottish referendum.
I thank the First Minister for that response.
Ac i arbed, i mi geisio gofyn cwestiwn ar y datganiad sydd yn dilyn gael o'n gyfarcho ar y papur mewn i gyhoeddi heddiw. Gan dynnu sylw yn arbennig at i uchelgais i sefydlu Pwyllgor Rhynglywodraethol Cymru yn y flwyddyn hon, le 2014 i 2015. Wel, os gall o'n neud hynny, mi fydd hynny wedi sicrhau datblygiad cyfansoddiadol o bwys mawr yn y berthynas rhwng Llywodraeth Cymru a Llywodraeth y Deyrnas Unedig, gan osgoi'r holl drafferthion diangen rydyn ni wedi gael yn y 15 mlynedd dwytha rhwng dwy Lywodraeth.
Well, it's exceptionally important that a number of things happen, that we have some means of having a constitutional convention to ensure that things become clearer, and it's also important that we move to a system where we have preserved powers rather than the system that we have at present, and also to strengthen the machinery of the joint ministerial councils in order to ensure that there's a real equal relationship between the ministers of every part of the United Kingdom. That's not the case at present.
Byron Davis.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, the importance of an honest, open and honourable relationship with our partners across the UK, including the UK Government, is imperative to progress here in Wales, as I'm sure you'll agree. So, given those key requirements, if we're going to work together to deliver for the people of Wales, what useful purpose reneging on a written agreement between transport ministers in London and Cardiff Bay has on progressing major infrastructure projects here in Wales? And I refer, of course, to the London-Swansea electrification project.
I heard what the Prime Minister said, namely that the UK Government will be paying for the South Wales mainline electrification and the Valley lines. If what the member asserts is correct, then the Prime Minister must have misled the people of Wales, and he should think carefully about making that point. I want to go beyond that. I've made that point several times, what the Prime Minister said. and there are discussions taking place between the Department of Transport and indeed the Welsh Government with a view to settling this matter so that we can all move forward with the electrification.
We now move to questions from the party leaders. And first this afternoon, the Leader of the Opposition, Andrew Davies.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, can you remind us, if you can, who said these words in the Chamber in 2012? The investment secures the future of Port Talbot. It will protect and enhance steel-making jobs there.
That's correct, me.
I'm glad you were able to remember that, First Minister. It was back in April 2012, in the middle of the local government election campaign, and you just returned from your journey out to India where you'd been speaking to Tata. You also went on to say that the £800 million that you had secured was designed to secure the future of Port Talbot in particular over the next 5 years. It shows that when you go to countries and talk to people, you come back with substantial investments. The investment secures the future of Port Talbot and will protect and enhance the steel-making jobs there. 6 months later, Tata announced 600 job losses here in Wales, and regrettably today, obviously, we've had the news that there could be potentially another 400 job losses at the Port Talbot site. Can you explain why, given all this rhetoric when you came back from your visit in India, why these jobs have been lost at Port Talbot in 6 months after you made the announcement, and the potential loss for a further 400 after the consultation process?
Well, I have to say to the Leader of the Opposition that £400 million of that investment has been made. Without that investment, many, many more jobs would have gone. Tata have indicated that they expect that the jobs that will be lost through voluntary redundancy and people taking early retirement, not through compulsory means. And they have also indicated that they face an uphill battle because of the UK government's policy, not the Welsh government's policy. They have said, amongst other things, that it's because of the lack of action by his party when it comes to energy prices that Tata is under pressure. And they have said that in their press release.
You have clearly misrepresented the views of the company when they've also referred to the highest business rates that they are paying, and many of the environmental taxes that are in place were put in by none other than Ed Miliband when he was in government in the last Labour government. So for you to cite the current Westminster government, which has made massive strides in alleviating the taxes that your colleagues put on companies such as Tata Steel when they were in government in the last clapped-out Labour government. Isn't it a fact, First Minister, that during election time...
I can't hear what you're saying. Would you like to carry on, please?
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Isn't it a fact, First Minister, that all you chose to do were a few sound bites during the local government campaign, and regrettably what we're seeing today are the families and the workers of Tata Steel having their jobs put under threat? What hope have they got of having any confidences in the pledges that you make when so many of those pledges prove to be so hollow?
He always blusters when he's caught, doesn't he? Always blusters when he's caught. It is a fact that Tata have been critical. There's no point shouting. He's had his viewpoint now. It is a fact that Tata have said in their press release that high energy prices are a problem. Business rates are not devolved, may I remind him yet, non-domestic rates. And so two non-devolved issues are the major problem for Tata. It is simply not good enough for him to say these are taxes put in place by the last Labour government. His party's been in government for the past 4 years in London, and they have failed miserably. The Chancellor of the Exchequer went to Tata, made a great play of how they would help Tata and other energy-intensive industries with their energy costs, and they have done precisely nothing. Those jobs have been lost as a result directly of the UK government's policy, and it's about time the UK government does as much for the steel industry as the Welsh government has already done.
We now move to the Leader of Plaid Cymru, Leanne Wood.
This is a very sad day for the Welsh economy and for all of those who have been affected by this announcement. When job losses are a possibility, especially hundreds of job losses, working with the trade unions and community leaders is very important. Many families will be very worried today. I wonder if you can tell us, First Minister, what discussions you have had with the trade unions and community leaders in relation to Tata's announcement today.
Those discussions will be ongoing now the announcement has been made, but just to emphasise the fact that, of course, these are jobs lost to the Welsh economy. Nobody can hide from that, but also the fact that it's Tata's belief that they will not have to institute compulsory redundancies, which is some relief, clearly, in the circumstances. Steelmaking remains difficult in Europe, and Tata have made the investment up to £400 million now to make sure that Port Talbot has a future. But there's no point hiding from the fact that it's been difficult for them over the past year or two, and the fact that these jobs are being lost is a sign of that. But there's no doubt there needs to be movement with regard to energy prices in order to help them in the future.
Tata have, as you've said, cited escalating energy costs in particular as part of the factors here. You've mentioned energy costs. Do you believe that if your government had sufficient powers in respect of energy, you could enable Tata to reconsider these jobs?
No, because of course the powers we've talked about for energy have been with regard to energy generation. If we're talking about a separate market, in other words creating a wholly Welsh energy market, that is a significant step, which would mean examining where power goes inside the Great Britain grid. Now, these are not things that have been looked at in terms of devolution. What we do need, of course, is that the action by the UK government to make sure that energy prices in Great Britain aren't so high that they dissuade investors from energy-intensive industries. And we have many of those industries in Wales. We need to make sure that what the Chancellor said he would do, he actually delivers on.
Tata have said that they do not foresee energy costs reducing in the foreseeable future, which is a problem. With this in mind, will you be seeking assurances from Tata on the future of their workforce elsewhere in Wales?
Tata have been very open with us over the years. They made me aware of this announcement some days ago in confidence. They don't hide anything from us. They work very closely with us, and I'm grateful to them for that. But nevertheless, it is correct to say that things have been difficult in terms of European steelmaking. There was a time when Port Talbot was making a substantial loss. There's no question about that. The investment that's been put in has helped to turn that around, and that's why that investment has been so important. Nevertheless, of course, we regret the recent job losses. We hope, of course, the company are able to deliver on what they said in terms of them being voluntary rather than compulsory. And, of course, we hope that this is part of a process that in the longer term enables the steelworks to become profitable and then, of course, to start to take people on again.
And finally, Leader of the Welsh Liberal Democrats, Kirsty Williams.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, please could you outline what aspects of the Ministerial Code have been breached by the Minister for Natural Resources?
Well, I can say to members that the report that was prepared for me by the Permanent Secretary will be published once the Minister has made his personal statement, and that will contain all the information that members need.
First Minister, your spokespeople have been briefing the media that Natural Resources did not feel in any way pressurised into completely changing their view about the Circuit of Wales. Would you agree with me that this is not about the integrity of Natural Resources Wales? The point is, the Minister tried, albeit unsuccessfully, to lean on Natural Resources Wales. You have agreed that he has breached the code. Could you tell the Chamber what are the consequences under your leadership for breaching the Ministerial Code?
It depends on what that breach is. I'd urge members, of course, to read the report when it was placed in the library, and then, of course, members can form their own views. I have taken the view that even though the code was breached, that it did not lead inevitably to a situation where the Minister should lose his job.
A year ago, you said, and I quote, "The Ministerial Code aims to define the boundaries between the roles of a government minister and the demands of a constituency member, and that in the case of the former Education Minister, you believed that those roles were confused. Then you showed strong leadership, and the Education Minister felt it necessary to leave his post. Why is it then, a year later, when you say that there has been a clear breach of the Ministerial Code, you have let the Natural Resources Minister keep his job?"
The circumstances are different. I asked the Permanent Secretary to examine all the circumstances. I have already made a written statement. With the Llyw's permission, the Minister will be making a personal statement, and the report that was prepared to me, I have arranged to be placed in the library as a courtesy to members.
Courtesy.
We now move back to questions on the paper, and question 3 is Janet Finn-Saunders.
Presiding Officer, will the First Minister make a statement on recruitment in the Welsh NHS?
Yes, the Welsh Government continues to support recruitment into the NHS, and the picture is a positive one, which shows that between 2012 and 2013, the total number of staff has increased by almost 400, and we continue to have more staff per head, for example, than England.
Thank you, First Minister. BMA Wales, however, have highlighted how the Welsh Government's rejection of the 1% pay rise proposed by the Doctors and Dentists Review Board would result in Welsh doctors earning 5% less than their UK counterparts. This is obviously going to actually affect the chances to attract and recruit more staff. When will your government get a grip on this situation and actually start addressing the very real concerns of our GPs and doctors and all within the medical profession across Wales?
Do you know what I find when I speak to doctors? They say to me they're glad they work in Wales, given the fact that they see what's happening in England. Can I say that we have received the pay review body's recommendation. We're working with representatives from professional bodies and trades unions about how an equivalent sum to that being made available in England can be distributed to NHS staff in Wales. I refer members, of course, to the fact that the front page of the Times last week contained criticism of the UK government's escape from, or attempt to escape from their failure to fund the NHS properly in England. And we saw a former Conservative minister attacking the UK government for its failure to properly fund the NHS in England only on Sunday. It shows that where you put the Conservatives in charge, you see the NHS starved of funds.
I hope Janet Finn-Saunders will hear the reply, because I think the noise from her front bench was restricting me somewhat. Christine Chapman.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, different parts of Wales may have different health challenges, so recruitment of different types of NHS professionals will be required, and we need to make sure that we meet this varying demand. For example, I am aware of possible challenges regarding diabetes and retinopathy in the Cynon Valley. What discussions then, First Minister, is the Welsh Government having with local health boards to map local needs and to make sure that they can recruit the specialist staff that their area needs?
Yes, well, health boards in Wales are in the process of developing and implementing their agreed 3-year and 1-year plans. As part of that process, they have to demonstrate evidence that they are population health organisations placing strong primary and community care at the centre of a transforming health system. We would expect them, as part of the preparation of their plans, to take into account the health profile and needs of the local population in order, of course, for them to be able to deliver services most effectively.
Ellen Jones.
Prif Weinidog, mae nifer doctoriaid yn cefn yng Nghymru yn is na beth yw yn y Gogledd Iwerddon, yr Alban ac yn Lloegr ac y Darisa yn Ewrop o ran hynny. Mae gan Rhai Cymru cynllun i hyfforddi a recrwtio 1,000 yn fwy o doctoriaid i'r NHS dros y degawd nesaf. Faint fwy o doctoriaid yn y degawd nesaf ydy'r Llywodraeth chi yn credu sydd angen i hyfforddi a recrwtio i'r NHS?
Mae'r nifer o staff yn Cymru yn...
I've said before, staff. I'm talking about doctors. Well, no, you must look at this in its broader sense. The number of staff per capita in Wales is higher than in England. And of course, we must ensure that we recruit sufficient number of doctors in the future. Money is not the problem, but ensuring that we can give them an opportunity to work in hospitals that will attract them to Wales. And I must say once again that it is not, in my view, sensible to say that you're going to pay for 1,000 doctors by ensuring that people drink more pop, people drink less pop, then you would need to halve the number of doctors. It's not a very firm foundation on which to build a policy, namely that you must ensure that people drink more pop in order to have more doctors. Less pop, fewer doctors. In what way is that sensible? I don't see how that can work in the long term.
Peter Black.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, given the current situation at ABMU, how do you intend to change the recruitment and training practices for medical staff so as to take account of the lessons from that particular issue?
Oh, I expect, of course, ABMU to take into account the June Andrews report in order to ensure that where they look to recruit in the future, that they are able to provide the public with the service that they would expect. I think what we have seen in the Andrews report is a serious breakdown in standards in some parts of the Princess of Wales Hospital, certainly not in all of it, and I expect the hospital and the ABMU board more widely to learn the lessons very, very strongly from that report.
Anne Jones.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, I was pleased to hear you say that we have more clinicians now working in the NHS in Wales, and I think that is highlighted by the fact that many doctors do want to be part of the Welsh NHS as opposed to the English NHS. I've previously raised with the Health Minister the fact that GPs salary GPs should be the way forward for those areas that are hardest to reach for recruitment. Salary GPs will give women, and particularly those who have some care responsibilities, an opportunity to enter into the medical profession. Is it time that we started to look seriously at salary GPs and to work closely with those practices that are purporting to have some real recruitment issues?
Yes, very much so, and we would encourage health boards to actively consider recruiting salary GPs to address any problems they have. It seems to me that salary GPs are becoming more and more popular, particularly as a way of working. There is more of a reluctance now on the part of GPs to buy into a practice, to have to fork out money at the beginning. So it does seem to me that the nature of general practice is changing, and that we will see more salary GPs in any event, because they will like the flexibility that being a salary GP brings, rather than being tied in with a capital payment into a practice.
Question 4, Russell George.
Will the First Minister make a statement on how the Welsh Government is enabling economic growth in Montgomeryshire?
Well, creating growth is at the heart of our programme for government, and our absolute focus remains on supporting and boosting the economy across Wales. For example, recently, Plant I Limited, a small company in Machynlleth, has received an innovation grant to part-fund the development of a new vehicle. Help has been offered to RM Group in Newtown, and indeed we have seen the expansion by Chemostrat in Welshpool.
Thank you, First Minister, for your answer. And I was pleased to hear your colleague, the Minister for Economy, state last week that she is examining the potential of Welsh Government developing business units in Montgomeryshire to try and fulfil the needs of a number of local businesses who want to expand. One of the issues that have been raised with me locally that is hampering the uptake of new businesses units is around the BREEAM standards, that they're potentially too prescriptive and consequently restricting new companies from developing units in the region. Will you agree to examine this issue? Because what we need in Mid Wales, of course, is the broadest range of business premises available to help economic growth.
I've not heard that. I mean, of course, one of the advantages of having a BREEAM excellent building is it's far cheaper to run. And so those costs do not bear as heavily on businesses as they would in buildings that are older. We have, of course, the Powys Local Growth Zone, which the member will be aware of, and, of course, he will be aware of the Wales Retail Relief Scheme. There is an issue in Northern Powys which does not help, and that is the fact that the electricity grid is fragile in the area. Now, of course, the problem with that is, I see him smiling enigmatically at that, is that does need more pylons. But nevertheless, there is an issue with the grid in the area that where the grid can be supportive of smaller businesses, but anything large the grid won't support, and that is one of the difficulties, of course, in balancing these decisions.
Rebecca Evans.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The success of Jobs Growth Wales in providing work opportunities for young people has been quite stunning. But how is the Welsh Government working with employers, specifically in Montgomeryshire, to engage them with a scheme so it can go from strength to strength in that part of my region?
Well, we don't have a breakdown per constituency. What I can say, though, that on a county level, the latest data shows that 408 job opportunities have been created in Powys, and 342 of those opportunities have been filled. So we have, of course, a significant number of young people who now have a job as a result of Jobs Growth Wales in Powys.
Simon Thomas.
Diolch Llywydd.
Thank you, Presiding Officer.
Lle bynnag i'ch chi'n gwella'r reilffordd Weinidog, mae tyfiant economaidd yn dilyn, ac mae'r reilffordd o Aberystwyth i Rwythig yn un o'r prif cysylltiadau dwy malwyd sy'n cysylltiadu pentrefi a busnesau at ei gilydd. Pa gamau byddwch chi'n neud fel Llywodraeth i sicrhau bod y cytundeb newydd ar ôl 2025 ar gyfer y reilffordd newydd yn cynnwys gwelliannau i cysondeb gwasanaethau ar y reilffordd, ond hefyd ail-agor gosafoedd
but also reopening stations such as Cadno and Montgomeryshire.
Well, of course, this will be considered when the agreement is confirmed. I know, of course, that we need to looking at more frequent services on the Mid-Wales line, and I know that some people have talked about the fact that we need more stations along that line. This, of all, will be considered as part of the discussions that will take place before the new contract is agreed.
Diolch Llywydd. First Minister, in your earlier answer you referred to the Powys local growth zones, and in that context in Montgomeryshire we've got the flagship Siroli Severn Valley Effect project, and there was a well-attended public meeting in Welshpool just a fortnight ago now to take that to the next level. A key to the success of the Siroli project is going to be recruiting sufficient numbers of volunteer business mentors from the community. What measures is your government taking to ensure that the zones are well publicised and that sufficient resource is put into recruiting the right quality mentors to take this forward?
Quite right, of course, to ask that. From our point of view, we will ensure there is a robust communications plan in place, and of course there will be funding available to make sure that the project is sustainable and effective, and that will of course involve recruiting sufficient voluntary business mentors in order for the project to be successful.
Question 5, Mark Isherwood.
Thank you. Will the First Minister make a statement on the organisation of local government in Wales?
Yes, I'll be making a full statement on that next week.
Well, that's a welcome response. I know you're making a statement on the Williams Commission, which only partially covers local government. There's many other public services involved as well. However, given that the Welsh Government accepted the Community Equality Local Government Committee recommendation that it should undertake a further analysis of costs and benefits of collaboration between local authorities and publish its findings, and that the Chartered Institute of Public Finance analysis of the financial implications of restructuring local government commissioned by the WLGA has not yet been made publicly available or possibly even published, is it not irresponsible for the Welsh Government to be moving ahead with proposed plans for the numbers and geography of merged councils?
No, we will, of course, we are in the process of conducting our own analysis of what the costs might be. I've seen the Williams Commission's analysis, I've seen the WLGA's analysis. It's important that we as a government are able to have that analysis as well, but there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that we are seeing unnecessary duplication of expertise, of effort and cost as a result of the present local government structure that we have, and it must change.
Roger Glyn Thomas.
Prif Weinidog, be newch chi o sylw Owen Smith taw mater i lywodraeth leol ydy adrefnu affiniau yng Nghymru a sylw Bob Wellington a arweinydd Cymdeithas Lywodraeth Leol Cymru nag i nhw wedi bod yn rhan o unrhyw drafodaeth. Ydy'r sylwadau yma mewn gwirion yn tanseilio unrhyw beth byddwch chi'n dweud wrthyn ni wythnos nesaf?
Bod ni wedi gofyn I Gymdeithas Llywodraeth Leol
the Welsh Local Government Association to give us their proposal as regards the reorganisation of local authorities, and they haven't responded, so there's been ample chance for receiving their views.
Keith Davis.
Am wnaeth y Prif Weinidog roi'r gwybodaeth diweddar am raglen Sêr Cymru.
Mae 3 pherson o safon eithriadol uchel wedi cael eu penodi I gadeiriau ymchwil Sêr Cymru, ac mae rhwydweithiau ymchwil cenedlaethol a tegol yn datblygu'n dda. Mae manylion pellach i'w gweld yn cyflawni gwyddoniaeth I Gymru 2013 yng nghydroddiad blynyddol ar ein hagenda strategol ar gyfer gwyddoniaeth yng Nghymru sydd ar gael ar wefan
Llywodraeth. Roedd yn falch I ddarllen yn ddiweddar fod Dr John Gallagher o Brifysgol Caerdydd a cyd-ddarlithwyr wedi cael ei dewis I arwain prosiect ymchwil ar dementia ble fydd mwy na 2 filiwn o bobl yn y byd yn cymryd rhan. Ydy'r Prif Weinidog yn cytuno â fi bod gwyddonwyr Cymru dan arweinyddiaeth Prif Ymgynghorydd Gwyddoniaeth Cymru, sef Julie Williams, gyda'r gorau yn y byd a bydd prosiect Sêr Cymru yn adeiladu ar hyn ar y llwyddiant mawr.
Cytuno'n hollol wrth gwrs.
Completely, of course, and of course there are good examples of where Wales leads the world. For example, this work being undertaken on dementia to ensure that they can treat it in future, and of course it's building on, for example, the good record that we have on cancer genetic science with the Cancer Centre that we have in Cardiff at present, and it's exceptionally important that we strengthen the research work carried out in Wales so that Wales is considered as one of the best in the world.
Darren Miller.
Officer. First Minister, I was very pleased to note the appointment of the chairs for the different aspects of research that will be supported by Cyr Cymru. But will you agree with me that there are huge opportunities here for the NHS in terms of its research capabilities in order to provide an opportunity for Wales to be the place for clinicians to want to come and assist with some of the recruitment challenges that we have as a result of the opportunities for research here in Wales?
I wholly agree with them, because one of the issues that is often raised with me is the need for doctors to feel they're coming somewhere where their talents can be fully utilised. And we know that's been the case, for example, in the bigger hospitals, but nevertheless, where we are seen as leaders, whether it's in a British, European or world field, that will make it easier to attract the best doctors and the best medical staff more generally to Wales. And that, of course, is very much part of our thinking when it comes to Cyr Cymru.
Bethan Jenkins.
First Minister, I understand that Professor Javier Bonnet, in charge of Advanced Engineering and Materials Network and based at Swansea University, is, and among other things, looking into photovoltaic energy production. This is something that Tata Steel has also discussed with me in the past. Do you know if these two are working together, and what has your government been doing to push this and other programmes towards Tata, and what discussions have you had with them concerning how this and other measures could potentially prevent job losses there at the moment?
I've not had any personal discussions, but I do know, for example, that Swansea University looks to work very closely with Tata. And of course, one of the reasons for building the new engineering campus on Fabian Way is because of the fact that Tata is in the area. And that is very much to be welcomed. It goes without saying, of course, that working with industry is an important part of the development of engineering expertise, particularly advanced engineering and materials expertise in Wales in the future, and I'm sure that will continue.
Julie Morgan.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The Cyr Cymru programme is very successful, as the First Minister has said in his response, but would he agree it's equally important to encourage budding scientists in our schools? And would he congratulate Sam Pinches from Whitchurch High School, who's been chosen to represent Wales in Washington, DC, as the Welsh winner of the Brain Bee worldwide neuroscience competition for students. And this is a competition which motivates young people to learn about the brain.
I very much congratulate Sam. It's wonderful to see somebody from Wales in the Brain Bee neuroscience competition. I'm grateful to them for raising the issue with me. I understand that Sam will be facing some stiff competition from around 30 countries in this global competition. And I agree, it's essential we encourage interest, of course, in science in all our schools. And that's why on the 16th of June I was pleased to announce a £2.3 million package of support for that very purpose.
Question 7, Eluned Parrott.
Diolch Llywydd. Will the First Minister make a statement on the devolution of tax varying powers to Wales?
Well, my view on this is fairly well known. I'm pleased to see progress that is being made in the Wales Bill, although I would not necessarily agree with the model proposed for income tax, and I'm disappointed, for example, to see a failure to devolve air passenger duty.
Thank you, First Minister. The Shadow Welsh Secretary failed to raise the issue of fair funding, which we'd all like to see addressed, but he did continue to raise concerns over the devolution of tax varying powers last week, stating that he feared that they could, and I quote, be misused. Now, whether he believes you're likely to lose the next Assembly election or that you would yourself misuse such powers, it isn't much of a vote of confidence in you. But why does UK Labour persist in believing that Scotland can be trusted with income tax when Wales cannot?
I fully believe that Wales can be trusted with income tax varying powers, but I also believe that the Barnett formula must be reformed before accepting them, because I know full well that without that reform, the underfunding that we have will simply be locked into the system, because whenever the issue of funding reform is raised, the answer will be from UK government, you can raise money, raise it yourself. The base has to be firm before you can build income tax varying powers upon that base, and that's why the issue of fair funding must be addressed first in the interests of Wales, before then looking at income tax varying powers. To do anything else would simply mean that our people would end up nearly £300 million a year worse off and have to fill that gap themselves.
Andrew Archie Davis.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, one of the taxes that is going to be transferred assuming the Wales Bill has a successful passage to the House of Commons, is stamp duty, and the Finance Minister has touched on innovative thinking that the Welsh Government has in this particular field. But other than talking of innovative thinking about what you would do with that power, are you in a position to outline exactly what the Government's thinking is around future stamp duty and the way it would be developed here in Wales?
Well, given the fact, of course, that stamp duty wouldn't be devolved until after the next Assembly election, I'm grateful to the Leader of the Opposition for his confidence that this government will be re-elected at that time, in asking, of course, for what ideas that we have. We are, at the moment, of course, examining the powers that will be devolved. We need to examine the establishment of a revenue authority for Wales in order to make sure that the money is collected. There are issues surrounding the land registry that will need to be resolved, given the plans at the moment to what appears to us to be privatising the land registry. And of course, in terms of how those powers are used, we are examining how best to use stamp duty, whether to continue with the current system, whether to make sure the bands are different, and also, of course, what the rates actually are.
Lle Griffith.
Diolch Llywydd. Yng nghyd-destun y treth y stamp ar dir, wrth gwrs,
stamp duty,
mae'n obligiadau
land
grant
tax,
bloc
there are
ac mae'r dreth benodol yma yn un gymnewidiol iawn, un volatile iawn, felly mae angen dod i ryw ddealltwriaeth ynglyn â faint sy'n cael ei ddyddymu o'r grant bloc ac felly mae angen i'r modd mae'n cael ei weithio allan felly cael ei fesur dros gyfnod yn hytrach na gofyn fynd i flwyddyn. Ydy'r gwaith i chi wneud ar hyn o bryd yn cymryd neu'n edrych ar yr ystyriaethau hynny ac os ydw e pryd i chi meddwl bod chi'n sefyllfa felly i fod ar ryw gynigion gerbron?
Wel, barn ni fel Llywodraeth yw, mae rhaid
Well, our view as a government is that we must focus on fair funding to begin with. If that's resolved, then of course it might be possible to have a sensible debate about income tax and how much money will be deducted from the block. But at present, we're in a position where more money will be deducted from the block, bearing in mind that the block is already inadequate for Wales. So in my view, to be sensible, we have to resolve that problem first of all, bearing in mind, of course, that 75% of the funding coming to Wales comes from the block. If the income tax powers that we have at present.
Question 8, Antoinette Sandbach.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Will the First Minister outline his priorities to improve the transport infrastructure in North Wales?
Yes, I can give the member some examples. Funding has been committed and a study is underway to investigate short-term options to improve capacity over the Britannia Bridge. £40 million of investment in major improvements on the A55 are being carried out or have been carried out between 2012 and 2016. We completed in October last year the Mysore-Helmait across Foxes improvement on the A470. The Gelli-Gemlin improvement was completed in April on the A470. The Porthmadog bypass was completed in October 2011. The Penloyne to Tanlan scheme was completed in May 2011. Of course, the scheme to provide the bypass between Carnarvon and Bontnewydd is moving forward. We have a project to improve the resilience of the A55 as well. Not just that, we give, of course, £300,000 a year to Anglesey Airport as part of the funding of the Wales Air Service. The North-South Journey Times Reduction Project, £44 million, is under construction. We put £2.1 million into Rill Station and, of course, £900,000 towards an accessible footbridge at Chirk, and they are just some examples.
First Minister, I think my constituents in North Wales would have trouble distinguishing from that what your priorities are, but they do know that the A55 trunk road in North Wales has been affected by roadworks in the last 3 years for 869 days, First Minister. The FSB in the area confirm that delays on the A55 are resulting in higher costs to businesses, and of course hard-working families are affected because of the cost to them in fuel while sitting in traffic delays. It also has the potential to harm tourism. Given that 20 months of roadworks sitting in road delays out of the last 3 years, when are you going to look at and prioritise improvements to the A55 and look at turning it into a 3-lane motorway?
Well, the member seems not to have listened to what I said. A £40 million investment in major improvements is being carried out on the A55 to improve the resilience and safety of the tunnels at Conway, Penmaen Bach and Penaclip. The works are being carried out from 2012 to 2016. It is true to say, of course, that there have been delays and roadworks on the A55, but that is in order to improve the road in the first place. It's just not possible to improve the road without having some roadworks in order to facilitate that work to be carried out. And I have to say, the short list that I've given there is an example of our commitment to improving transport infrastructure in the north.
Anne Jones.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, the Committee for the Scrutiny of the First Minister, which I joined last July, I'm sure you were delighted to know I'm on that committee, but there we go. You can't always have what you want, but I did talk about the dualling of the Wrexham-Saltney line on the rail, and unlike the colleague from North Wales, Antoinette Sambach, I think that we should be doing all we can to get more people off the roads and back onto public transport on the rail. Therefore, can I say that I was pleased to see that it would have to be following my scrutiny of that project, that now it's gone ahead, and that we've got some £44 million being invested in that doubling of the railway infrastructure. I wondered, First Minister, seriously, what impact is the Welsh Government going to be able to show that will have on times, on rail time, journey times north-south, and also what that will mean for the wider economy of North Wales?
Yes, it will reduce journey times between Holyhead and Cardiff by approximately 16 minutes. It'll also mean that an extra train every 2 hours will be able to be run between Holyhead and Cardiff via Wrexham in both directions. And of course, there have been problems in running trains from Wrexham to Chester, because some trains have had to go through Crewe because of the problems on the line. 5.5 miles of track is being redoubled between Rosset and Saltney Junction. And that will mean, of course, not only that there will be more trains, but the journey times will be significantly improved.
Llywydd, dwi'n falch o fod wedi derbyn y llythyr gan y Gweinidog Trafnidiaeth yn dilyn cais gen i yn dweud bod system tair lôn ar Bont Britannia yn cael ei ystyried o ddifri eto rwan fel cambyr dymor. Dwi'n i'n mydi'r Prif Weinidog yn ymwybodol o'r syfferthion trafnidiaeth dybryd iawn yng Nghyffiniau'r Bont ar ochr Môn ar hyn o bryd oherwydd gwaith ailwynebu'r ffordd, ac os ga i ddeud mae'r rhaid ffindio ffyrdd o wneud gwaith fel hyn sy'n creu llai o drafferthion i deithwyr ac yn cael llai o impact economaidd. Ond ydy'r Prif Weinidog yn cytuno bod y syfferthion da ni'n ei weld ar hyn o bryd yn cryfhau y ddadl dros gymryd camau brys o ystyried mae blaenoriaethau da ni'n sôn amdanyn nhw mwyn gwella llif traffig dros y bennau yn y byrdro.
Well, I know of the problems on the bridge personally, and it's difficult to believe. Remember that over 25 years ago there was only the Menai Suspension Bridge, because the Britannia Bridge was a rail bridge and there were problems because there'd been a fire on the bridge in the 1970s. Having said that, we do understand how important the bridge is, not only to Anglesey, but for those travelling to Holyhead in order to travel to Ireland, and that's why a study is being undertaken at present to see in what ways in the short term we can ensure that things improve on the bridge.
Diolch Llywydd. Prif Weinidog, dwi'n croesawu'r buddsoddiad yn yr rheilffordd rhwng Wrexham a Chaer, ond wrth gwrs mae'r cynllun sy'n cael ei weithredu ar hyn o bryd yn cynllun wahanol i'r un ddari Anne Jones graffu ar llynedd. Y bwriad greiddiol oedd bod yna ychwanegu a lleihau'r amser rhwng Caergybi a Chaerdydd, ond hefyd bod yna capacity ychwanegol yn cael ei greu ar gyfer cysylltiadau i Lerpwl a Manceinion. A ni fydd hynny'n digwydd o dan y cynllun diwygedig yma. Felly newch chi fel Llywodraeth addo i drigolion y Gogledd Ddwyrain, mi fyddwch chi'n edrych ar hwyrach ehangu'r cynllun presennol fel bod y cynllun greiddiol yn cael ei roi nôl o fewn cynllun i'r dyfodol.
I can tell the member that we have commissioned, together with Mersey Travel, studies to look at direct services to Liverpool, and discussions are taking place at present with the Northern and Trans-Pennine trains with the Department of Transport in London in order to ensure that the importance of connections into Manchester in particular and to Liverpool are considered in future.
Question 9, Leighton Andrews.
Will the First Minister make a statement on the National Literacy and Numeracy Framework?
Yes, the framework has been a statutory curriculum requirement from September of last year. It is central to achieving our aims of improving the teaching and learning of literacy and numeracy. And of course, schools are being helped to implement it by a national programme of support.
So does the First Minister agree with me that the framework is essential to driving up standards in our schools and to providing information both for teachers and for parents? Would he also agree that one person who might benefit from reading the National Literacy and Numeracy Framework would be the Secretary of State for Education in London, who would learn what a radical programme of school improvement we have underway here in Wales without need of free schools or academies?
Absolutely. I much enjoyed the Gove Lewis fight in the Western Mail on Saturday. I'm sure we was sold that as a pay-per-view on satellite channels. I've no doubt who would win, of course, namely who. But the member is absolutely right. The framework is absolutely crucial for teachers to be able to benchmark what they are doing, but I can speak personally in this regard, absolutely crucial for parents to understand how their children are doing when compared to other children in the school and when compared to children across Wales. Absolutely invaluable.
Yeah. Susie Davis.
First Minister, Estyn has indicated that it will be some years before we see results from government policy. But is there any early evidence about how action taken under the literacy element of the framework might be affecting pupils who are either being taught through their second language or have different languages at home?
No, there's no evidence of that. We would be aware, of course, of what's happening in schools where Welsh is the medium of instruction and where most of the children come from homes where Welsh is not spoken. But there's certainly no indication that one or other of the languages that they speak is being affected by the framework. Indeed, it's absolutely crucial that we're able to understand the progress of children when compared with each other, so as to ensure that teachers are able to understand how to benchmark their own efforts and, if needs be, of course, to improve them.
Question 10, Paul Davis.
Diolch Llywydd. Wnaeth y Prif Weinidog ddatganiad am yr hyn y mae Llywodraeth Cymru yn ei wneud i gefnogi'r economi yng Ngorllewin Cymru.
Twf economaidd a swyddi cynnal
iadwy yn
hanfod ein raglen Lywodraethu, yn cymryd amrywiaeth eang o gamau gefnogi busnes gwerthu sgiliau a chryfhau ein sylwaith.
Prif Weinidog, dwi'n siŵr y byddwch chi'n cytuno fi bod y cytundeb mewn egwyddor yma rhwng Murphy a'r prynwr yn gamanferth ymlaen i ddiogelu'r ffurfa olew yn Aberdaugleddau. Dwi'n falch bod eich Llywodraeth chi a Llywodraeth y Deyrnas Unedig wedi bod yn gweithio yn agos ar hyn i gefnogi'r cwmni a'r gweithliad. Dwi'n gwerthfawrogi hyn yn fawr iawn. Wrth gwrs, nid yw'r gwerthiant wedi ei gwblhau eto, ac mae yna rhai heriau wrth gwrs sydd o'n blaen. Ond gallwch chi ddweud wrthon ni pa gamau penodol pellach y mae Llywodraeth Cymru yn awr yn ei cymryd i sicrhau bod y gwerthiad yn mynd o'i flaen?
Anodd i wneud hynny, wrth gwrs, mae lawer o drafodaethau Cymru lle sydd yn gyfrinachol yn fasnachol. Mae'n wir i weid bod na gysylltiad cryf wedi bod rhwng ni a Llywodraeth y Deyrnas Unedig. Mae rhaid cael input wrth y trysorus mwyn sicrhau bod unrhyw pecyn yn effeithiol. Ni wedi symud y cam nesaf, a cam yn y cyfeiriad iawn, ond mi'n wir i weid bod yna lawer o waith i wneud eto, a mae'n bwysig i bwysleisio hwnna, ond bydd ni wrth gwrs yn gweithio gyda unrhyw un a wrth gwrs Llywodraeth y Deyrnas Unedig mwyn sicrhau bod ni'n gallu symud ymlaen i sefyllfa lle mae'r swyddi yn wir wedi cael i diogelu.
George Watson.
And First Minister, I'm sure that, and I want to reiterate the delight that people have had by the news of the breakthrough sale, although it's not complete, in the Merco oil refinery, and what that really does mean to the economy of that area. And I recognise there's an awful lot of work to do, but I also want to recognise the part that everyone has played to get to where we are. And the special task force that was set up by the Welsh Government has helped in no small measure to help to secure a deal. But I would like you, Minister, to give me some assurances that those people who are currently around the table, particularly the trade union membership that is currently around the table, will be still around the table as we're going through the negotiation process, and that their voices will be heard.
Well, it's important, of course, that the voices of the workforce are heard. Again, I have to say to the member that things have moved forward one step in the right direction, but there isn't much work to be done yet. Particularly with...
I'm sorry, I thought he'd finished. Sorry.
Particularly with regard, of course, to the normal due diligence checks, which one might expect. And, of course, as I said earlier to the member for Preseli Pembrokeshire, there is a need to ensure that the Treasury input, which has been there up till now, is maintained.
Simon Thomas.
Diolch Llywydd. Mod i hefyd yn croesawu newyddion am Merco, dwi eisiau tynnu eich sylw at diwydiant arall sy'n bwys yn Sir Benfro a'r fy fanbath i, sef ysgota, a'r cynnig gan y Comisiwn Ewropeaidd ynglyn â fwyd i drift, cynnig sydd wedi dod dipyn o ergyd a sioc i faes yn ymarfer hyn. Ydych chi wedi cael cyfle i edrych ar y cynnig hwn ynglyn â deddfwriaeth ynglyn â fwyd i drift, ac yn benodol ydyn nhw'n gymesur ar hyn sy'n digwydd yn y cyd-destun Cymraeg, lle mae llawer o'r ysgota
much of the fishing is inshore, and what steps are you taking through the Westminster government to bring persuasion to bear on the European Commission to learn the lessons of sustainable fishing happening in Wales?
I know that the Minister is aware of this, and he has taken this on with the Commission directly in order to ensure that they understand what is relevant to Wales, and of course we hope that that will be taken into consideration by the Commission when they come to a decision on it.
Thank you, First Minister. In accordance with Standing Order 12.52, I have received a request from the Minister for Natural Resources and Food to make a personal statement, and I call on the Minister, Alan Davis.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. I'm grateful to you for allowing this personal statement. As members will know, in seeking to further the interests of my constituents, questions were raised about possible conflict with my role as a Minister. The First Minister commissioned an inquiry to establish all the relevant facts, and he concluded that I did in fact breach some specific elements of the Ministerial Code. I have already apologised to the First Minister and would like to do so again now for the public record. My intention was to promote the interests of my constituents as faithfully as possible. However, I recognise that ministers need to take special care in managing constituency interests, and I regret that on this occasion I did not exercise sufficient care to maintain a clear perception of full separation of my ministerial role and my role as a constituency assembly member. I note, however, that my comments had no influence on the final view of Natural Resources Wales regarding the Circuit of Wales planning application. Presiding Officer, I am proud to serve my constituency of Blaenau Gwent. I am proud to serve this government as a minister, and I will continue to fulfil both roles with all my energy. Thank you very much.
Point of order, Kirsty Williams.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. I raise a point of order under 12.4 and 12.17 of this National Assembly standing orders. It is clear, Minister, that the Welsh Government are in possession of a document relevant to items on this afternoon's agenda, but have not yet published it. I note also that the Welsh Government issued a written statement, the First Minister issued a written statement at 1 minute past midday, referring to a document that is yet to be published, and I would assist your guidance in whether this is in line with standing orders.
Yes, I am always very concerned to ensure that members have all the information they need to support them in holding ministers to account. However, the timing of the release of this report was a matter for the First Minister. We now move on to an urgent question under Standing Order 12.66, and I call on Andrew Archie-Davies to ask that urgent question. Andrew Archie-Davies.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Will the First Minister make a statement on the Permanent Secretary's investigation into the actions of the Minister of Natural Resources and Food in connection with the Circuit of Wales project?
That statement was made at midday, shall we?
Presiding Officer, a cynic might say 45 minutes after the job losses announcement at Tata, today was a good day to bury bad news. In respect...
Order.
In respect that the opposition parties took the Minister at his word and allowed 14 days for this report to be put together, we have waited another 7 days and we have not had the opportunity to see that report when taking the statement. I noticed the Minister's statement today only referred to some aspects had been breached, yet the statement that was released by the First Minister said that the code had been broken, categorically, no grey area, the code had been broken. If the First Minister isn't prepared to remove the Minister, then I think the Minister should do the honourable thing and return to the backbenches because the ministerial code has been broken. First Minister, in light of the findings of the Permanent Secretary, what does a Minister have to do in your government to have their ministerial portfolio removed from them if they breach the ministerial code?
That is within my judgment. I have to say, I'm surprised that he thinks that in some way Tata had anything to do with this, because I can tell him that the Commission were informed at 10 o'clock this morning that this statement would be forthcoming. That was before, if I remember rightly, the Tata announcement, I think I'm right in saying. And so it is simply not the case to suggest that somehow this statement was released on the back of the Tata announcement. I can say to the Leader of the Opposition that I received this report on Wednesday last week. That's when I received it. I was in Brussels last week. It was then prudent, of course, to examine the contents of that report and come back here on Tuesday, which is why, of course, I was here to answer First Minister's questions. I'm sure, of course, that if this had been released on a Saturday or a Monday, he would have been more than critical, and rightly so, but he cannot have it both ways. I made it quite clear that the report would be with me within 14 days. I did not say I'd take a decision within 14 days. I've got to consider the report first. And that is something that I have done. And today was the appropriate day, in my judgment, to release a written statement and to deal with the matter in order to allow members, as they have done, to ask questions in First Minister's questions.
Simon Thomas?
Diolch Llywydd. Dwi'n mynd I dibynnu o'r
cod.
We still await the publication of the report to yourself on the breach of the ministerial code, which has now been acknowledged by the Minister himself. Can you therefore confirm to the Chamber that my interpretation of 4 clear breaches of the code, firstly on 4.4, the obligation to consult with the First Minister when there is a conflict of interest arising from a constituency and ministerial point of view, and if that you have already confirmed that that did not happen, can you confirm also that there was no consultation with the private office and advisors for the Minister on that? Further breaches under 4.7, firstly that any Minister must represent the views of their electorate rather than express a view themselves. The Minister clearly expressed his own view in the letter that he wrote to Natural Resources Wales. A further breach of 4.7, that the Ministers must ensure comments are made available to all the other parties. I'm not aware of any evidence that those comments that the Minister made were available to other parties. And finally, a most egregious breach of the code under 410 subsection D, when it states very clearly that the determination of a planning application, and this is a planning application, will lead to or implicitly involve other decisions or judgments in which the Minister making representations is involved, then that Minister should not make any comment of his or her own. The fact that the Minister is not the deciding Minister on a planning issue does not obviate him from the obligations under this code not to make his own comments on bodies that are given advice on a planning application. The determination of a planning application involving other decisions or judgments in which the Minister making representations is involved. That's the clear position that that Minister is in. 4 breaches of the code. Can you confirm that, Minister? And if you do confirm that, can you confirm on what basis, therefore, the Minister either did not resign after trampling over the ministerial code, or you did not sack him? And if that is the case today, are you going to simply rip up this ministerial code because it's not worth the paper it's printed on?
Oh, the drama, the drama. He gets several things wrong there, first of all. First of all, the Minister was not involved as the decision taker in a planning application. Nevertheless, it is correct to say in the ministerial code that it says care must be taken to distinguish the role of an AM from a Minister in that regard. And in the report, which is now available in the library, members will see how the Permanent Secretary resolved that issue or dealt with that issue. To my mind, there were some breaches of the ministerial code. In my judgment, they were not so serious as to justify the Minister being removed from his post. It's right to say that Ministers should take care to ensure that it's absolutely explicit that they're acting as Assembly members, and the communications sent by the Environment, Natural Resources and Food Minister were sent from his AM box, although it was not made explicitly clear that they were in his capacity as an AM. I think acting in an excess of caution, that is always good practice. There is no suggestion that there was any influence on Natural Resources Wales's final view when it came to the planning application at the Circuit of Wales, and that, of course, is important. If there had been a suggestion that they had been influenced, then matters might have been somewhat different. There is no ban on Ministers making representations on planning issues. I know that Plaid Cymru Ministers did so in the course of the last government, but nevertheless, they have to make it clear that they are acting as Assembly members, and it's perfectly proper that Ministers are able to do that. Ministers clearly, if they are planning Ministers, they clearly cannot make representations with regard to planning matters, but there is no ban on Ministers making representations in their capacity as Assembly members on constituency issues. It is simply wrong to say that. It is not there in the code. I advise the member to read the code carefully.
It's there. I read
it does not say that. What it says is that Ministers have to take particular care to ensure that they formally separate their roles as AMs from their roles as Ministers.
Kirsty Williams.
First Minister, would you not accept the point, regardless of whether Natural Resources Wales felt it was as a result of the communication with the Assembly Member for Blaenau Gwent, that they completely changed their position on the Circuit of Wales, an earlier position which they had spent many months in consideration of? The fact that that communication happened at all is the question in point here. And secondly, I'm very pleased that you took the step to ask the Permanent Secretary to provide the report for you. This is very welcome, and it is moving towards a system that I have long advocated, as have my party, is what we need is someone completely independent of government to police the ministerial code. Would you now agree to look again at the prospect of appointing someone independent of your government and independent of the civil service to police the ministerial code? After all, if the next complaint was about your behaviour, how would that decision be taken?
That decision is taken by the electorate and those who elect the government. It is my job to police the ministerial code, as it is in Westminster, because it's the Prime Minister, it's David Cameron, the Prime Minister, who has the responsibility to police the ministerial code and to take decisions as to whether ministers remain in place or not. That is what the Conservatives agree. There's no point in claiming they don't agree with it. That's what their own party does in government in London. On this occasion, I don't believe this has happened before, I took the view that it was important that the facts were investigated by the Permanent Secretary and that he was able to present those facts in an objective way to me in order for me to take the final decision. As I've said, that report now rests in the library. I was not obliged to publish that report, but I took the view that it was a courtesy to members that I should, and that report has indeed been published. I'm sure that if the Conservatives and Lib Dems had been in this position in London, they would never have published the report. We took the view that, I took the view rather, that I should do so, and members are able to form their own judgments based on that report.
Andrew Sandbach.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Well, First Minister, when I wrote to you about this issue, I requested the release of information and communications, and effectively that operates as a request under the Freedom of Information Act, which has not been complied with. I think it is relevant that the Minister is the Minister for the Environment, and that this project will result in 750,000 cubic metres or cubic tonnes of peat being excavated, and that at the point that the Minister wrote to Natural Resources Wales, they were opposed to this project, and he wrote on the 13th of June, "Thank you, Graham." This is an employee of Natural Resources Wales. "This second letter does begin to move us in the right direction. I do appreciate that, and I am grateful for you taking the time to review these matters. However, I remain concerned with the processes at work within Natural Resources Wales in this matter. In addition, I do not believe that the current NRW position does reflect the totality of the statutory duties and the demands of the remit letter provided by NRW to NRW by the Welsh Government. In fact, that remit letter is provided by your Minister for the Environment. He is the one that decides on the budget that is allocated to Natural Resources Wales. If it looks like a threat, it sounds like a threat, some people, and I will leave this to the public to decide, may decide that it is a threat. Minister, First Minister, you are a lame duck government with a lame duck minister, and your minister should resign.
Well, I'm sure the member's comments would have carried more weight as she not tweeted immediately that this was the working of a South Wales Taffia. It shows part of her obsession that there is a conspiracy against the north of Wales on behalf of the south, and it's something that she should really put to one side. I believe in one nation of Wales, not trying to divide it as she does through her own tweets. Could I say, as far as the issue that she has raised is concerned, I note the fact that the communication was sent by the Minister in the middle of June, and NRW made their final position known in the middle of August. So it is not as if the decision was changed in a matter of days or weeks afterwards. That is simply not the case. Can I also say, as far as the issue is concerned that the matters she referred to at the very beginning of her questions have been dealt with in the report, and she is more than welcome to access that report where she will find the information that she's looking for.
Russell George.
First Minister, despite your statement this afternoon, there's naturally going to be question marks around the independent status of NRW, particularly in the minds of the public. There were concerns when looking at the establishment of NRW about how proposed Chinese walls would work in practice and how sufficient those internal walls would be. We, of course, didn't anticipate of such blanket interference that we have seen by the Minister in this regard. But my question is, how is the Welsh public supposed to have confidence in NRW exercising its functions impartially when the Welsh Government applies this sort of pressure?
The Welsh Government has applied no pressure to NRW. Can I make that absolutely clear? Ministers have not done so in their capacity as ministers, nor we seek to do so. In fact, of course, with regard to arm's-length bodies, the situation in Wales is exactly the same as England, where you have the Environment Agency, for example, which is in a similar role of being an arm's-length body as it is with the Natural Resources Wales. And they have made it clear, as part of the Permanent Secretary's investigations, that they were not influenced in any way by any of the comments that were made by Alan Davies acting in his role as Assembly Member for Blaenau Gwent. When it comes to the budget, it's not quite right to say that the Minister has full control over the budget for Natural Resources Wales, because the Finance Minister also has a role in ensuring that budgets are approved as part of the budget approval process. I know that the Leader of the Opposition doesn't understand that, because he's not been in government and never will be.